Welcome back. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Now, Nigeria's nearly 2-week-old president is not relenting in efforts to make the Boko Haram insurgency a thing of the past. Earlier this week, he met with his French counterpart to discuss the issue on the sidelines of the Group of Seven summit, that's G7, and that certainly paid off, as the G7 industrialized nations have resolved to support President Muhammadu Buhari. But right here in Nigeria, there are more meetings going on. The defense chiefs of Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon, Chad, and Benin Republic met in the capital yesterday, to lay the groundwork for the joint task force against Islamist group Boko Haram. The country is waging a regional fight against the Islamist militant group Boko Haram, and that will take significant steps towards establishing a joint task force when they meet again tomorrow. That's June the 11th, still in the nation's capital.
As you are all aware, it's a follow-up to our previous meetings held on the same subject in Cameroon and Niger in the past couple of months. Security is an issue that affects every nation takes very seriously, and the rise of extremism and terrorism across our region and indeed the world has made the issue even more pertinent. Our meetings, not only as members of LCBC, but at the bilateral or multilateral levels, have created opportunity for us to move a step further in the ongoing fight against terrorism and criminal elements within our region. It is a known fact that terrorists do not recognize or respect international boundaries, and as such carry out their acts both within and across national boundaries,
which we hope will give us the necessary support, both political and financial, for the actualization of the multinational joint task force, will give the clear message to the world and our friends that this is the time to support us, and this is the time to show full commitment to this war against terrorism.
Well, joining us from the nation's capital via Skype is our very own correspondent, that's Amaka Okafor. Amaka, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Now, what more can you tell us about this meeting as regards what's happened so far?
So after the meeting from yesterday, that is the meeting of the chiefs of defense staff, another meeting started today and is actually ongoing, and that is the meeting of the ministers of defense from the 5 countries of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. And at that meeting, the executive secretary of the commission, Mr. Sanusi Abdullahi, told the ministers that about $30 million would be required in the next 1 year to reduce the activities of the Boko Haram sect to the barest minimum. And he expressed optimism that the heads of government would do the needful to ensure that the fight is tackled headlong. And after today's meeting, the report from this meeting would be submitted to the heads of government, who are the decision makers and who would decide if to operationalize the multinational joint task force or not. And by operationalization, they mean structures and commands would be put in place to coordinate the fight on all sides.
Now, what do we expect to see tomorrow when the meeting is over?
Well, all sides are expressing hope, trusting, believing that the heads of government would give a stamp of approval to the objectives and the decisions that have been made by the chiefs of defense staff and today the ministers. And so the expectation for tomorrow is that the decision to operationalize the multinational joint task force would be made tomorrow.
Now, speaking of expectations, Amaka, at this point, I just have to do a backtrack, because when we combine the promises made by the G7 to support the president in the meeting, which was concluded earlier this week, along with this meeting that's going on, they've happened back to back. in truth, the expectations are very high. How do you anticipate that all this might play out at the end of the day?
Well, we're hoping, like the Executive Secretary of the Lake Chad Basin said, the support this region needs from the world is an area of funding, equipment, and all of that. So maybe from the with the promise from the G7 and what we expect for tomorrow, we hope that you know, words will match our action, and we would start seeing results from the multinational joint task force.
Well said. Amaka Okafor, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed. We appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our correspondent from Abuja, Amaka Okafor. Now, before we go on a break, we'll just have to bring you some unfortunate news coming from other parts. Dozens of armed men on motorbikes suspected of being Islamic State militants attacked a police base in southern Mali. That was earlier today. It was confirmed by security sources, the likes of Colonel Suleiman Mega, who is the director for communication for the Malian army. But he did not give a death toll or comment on the identity of the attackers, even though they are suspected to be Islamic State militants. However, he did mention that reinforcements had been deployed to the area. And one of the military sources also said that about 30 attackers arrived at the base in the Sikasso region area, that's near the Ivorian border, waving a black flag and shouting Allahu Akbar, which is actually God is greatest in Arabic, which is probably what made them conclude that it might have been an attack from the Islamic State. Now, a delegation of Libya's elected parliament has arrived in Germany to discuss with European and North African officials, and that's according to a UN proposal to form a unity government. The idea is to form that unity government despite some lawmakers rejecting the plan. The splits underscored the complex task the United Nations faces in implementing any agreement for a united national authority and a peace deal on the ground where two rival governments and various armed factions are battling for control. Some 55 out of 72 attending lawmakers had ordered the delegation to come back to Libya and not to travel to Germany. But we'll take another break now on the program. When we come back, we're bringing you updates from the world's newest country. Hunger is a big issue. Please stay with us.